Well, thanks so much for tuning into Talking Point. I'm your host, Neeraj Shah. IT certainly caught the fancy, but remember the last time that we spoke to Mr. Ravi Pandit of KPIT Technologies, he went to great lengths to explain why KPIT Technologies should not be viewed as an IT services company. I reckon the market, not because of that conversation, but because of many others that he would have had, took cognizance of the kind of work that KPIT Technologies seems to be doing, because the stocks turned out as arguably the best performing mid-cap IT name, or arguably the best performing IT name in the whole of 2021. The question is, after having a fabulous 2021, both on the business side and on the market side, what is in store for KPIT as a company in 2022 and beyond? And since Mr. Ravi Pandit is with us, we'll try and squeeze in some conversation around what he's individually doing on some other facets as well. Mr. Pandit, great having you. Thanks for joining in. Hope all is safe.
Thank you very much, Neeraj. My pleasure to be on the call with you.
Good evening to you. I understand it's a late evening for you, so thank you for taking the time out. Now, Mr. Pandit, you've had a great 2021 in that mobility has become the focus of everybody's attention, and therefore, while your business picked up, I think the market, as I said, the market's recognition of the potential was even more stark. Now that you've done what you've done thus far, in terms of business, can you kind of, putting a broadly macro question, can you tell us how did 2021 shape up over 2020 in terms of new things that you did, or the direction that you took, and how do you expect 2022 and beyond to be compared to what you've done in 2021?
Okay, so I think, Neeraj, we may have to go a couple of years behind to talk about what it was that we saw in 2021. So as you remember, a few years ago, we were a general information technology services company. We restructured ourselves to become a very sharply focused technology company, something focused on embedded software for the mobility industry. So we are not, as you rightly pointed out in the initial sentence, we are not a generalized IT services company, but we are a technology company. The point that we wanted to make was that we wanted to be, you can say, inch wide and mile deep. And what you have seen happen in 2021 is actually a result of that strategy. So we have, on one side, I would think, arguably the highest degree of expertise in the automotive embedded, side, in the country. On one side, we have that, and on the other hand, we have a situation where the auto industry is going through like once in 100 years kind of a change. And, so these are the two things which are meeting each other, which is what you see reflected in our results. And also, I believe, in the stock price. Now, the question is whether this is something which we expect to see continue. We very much do expect to see it continue because of the changes that are happening in the automotive industry. As you know, there are 4 or 5 major things which are driving the change in the industry. People are going in for clean vehicles. People are going in for connected vehicles. They want to have safe autonomous driving or advanced driver assistance feature vehicles. And all of this actually translate into a lot of electronics. 90% of these new features are driven by electronics. And within electronics, they're actually driven by software rather than hardware. And that's the area where we play. So we see a lot of opportunity going ahead. And it's exciting to be in this area at this point in time. And I must say it is not just because it can mean very good business for us, but I think it means something to us as a company because we are very, very committed to a clean world, to a safe world. And we have the ability to play in this field and contribute to the betterment of the field.
Mr. Pandit, the last conversation that we had, which was, I think, about 3 quarters ago, you had mentioned that you want to move from being a vendor to a partner, or want to be recognized as a partner and not a vendor. And you were in the midst of that kind of conversation with a bunch of your clients, top 25, if you will, or top 21 as the strategy is. How successful has that been? Has that conversation been? And if indeed that transmission is happening, so to say, could it be that you and companies in your kind of work are at a stage where maybe IT services was 10, 15 years ago, and the growth rates of the next few years could make today's growth rates look pale in comparison?
As I said last time, we deal with some top, 25 clients, and our work is actually not as a vendor but as a partner. And it is as a partner because we are looking at changes which are likely to happen over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So the work that we do is essentially with the R&D departments of our client companies, and it's something which will affect their model years 24, 25, 26, etc. So the work is really more future looking. The work is more where they contribute to their requirements of the field, and we contribute by saying what is the best way that these things can be addressed through embedded software. We are being recognized as thought leaders in this area, which helps us position ourselves as partners of choice and not as vendors. Given that, and given the broad trends in the industry, and let me talk a bit about the trends, because I think this is something which is very exciting, and I'm sure your listeners would also find it interesting. So, there are 2, 3 layers of how changes are happening. A is this very large number of new features which are coming in to make the vehicles clean, for example. When it comes to clean, how do you design a good electric powertrain? How do you have a good ECU? How do you ensure that the battery management systems are proper? All these things come into that. When we are talking about safe, we are saying, how do we make the cars more aware of its environment? How do the sensors do a better work? How do we ensure that the accidents can be brought down? How do we ensure that the driver's actions are properly detected, etc.? So all of these are really features at that level. Now, high-end cars have probably 120 computers in them. Now, that's a very large expense. So the next level is, how can we combine these so many computers in a smaller number and come up with a different architecture of a car? So from a decentralized processing, how do we go to a more centralized or zonal computing, as they say? So when you go for zonal computing, the whole architecture changes. And that is something which is very critical from every OEM's perspective. So we are working on how do you change the architecture of electronics. Then again, since the cars are becoming really computers on wheels, most of these semicon companies are now interested in these areas. So how do we ensure that making a chip takes a long time, and you have to be involved in chip making right from the earlier stages, so that the working of a chip and the working of a car kind of go together. So how do you do virtualization? How do you do verification of chips before they are actually brought into production? Is second level of work. So you have work at the features level, you have work at consolidation level, and you have work at semicon level. And so we see ourselves moving in that direction, which is actually makes us very deep partners with our clients.
Which therefore, Mr. Pandit, would probably mean that you're, as you said, inch wide and mile deep, and would therefore mean that if you are indeed that well entrenched in the books of all your partners, then the quantum of work, the quality of work, the return on investment of the work that you do will probably only expand in the years to come. Would that be a safe assumption?
So that is what we are working towards. That's what we are working towards. We are hoping that the value addition that we do to our customers will increase over a period of time, and that will certainly get reflected in the rates that we will get paid. At the same time, we will continue to invest a lot in our business, because we have to make our clients ready for not just tomorrow, but for day after tomorrow.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to ask you that. There is obviously all that talk of an Apple car. There is Tesla, which has shown that tech company with inherent technology, I presume, can give the incumbents a run for that money. How difficult would it be for an incumbent car company who might be your client to take on the might of the technological prowess of all of these tech giants, which are getting into the car business, so to say? And does that, how do I say, for lack of a better word, reduce the scope of work that a car company can do and thereby a KPIT technology can do? Or am I misunderstanding this?
Yeah. So see, all the traditional car companies are beginning to realize that there is some merit in the work that Tesla has been doing. Okay. So if I were to say very broadly, what Tesla is a computer covered with an external of a car. What many of the erstwhile car companies were doing was a car which has a computer inside. Now, there is a big difference between these two. Okay, so how you design a car which is an electronic machine more than a mechanical machine is a challenge which the auto industry is well aware of. And you see the giants in the auto industry working towards that. You would see that all of them are now tying up very closely with semicon makers. All of them want to have a cohesive, integrated design from the chip to the vehicle level. Some of them are going to make their own chips. Quite a few of them are making partnership with chip companies. So you'll see these two fields kind of coming together. Much the same way you will see a telecom field coming together with maybe with a cloud computing. So similarly, these things are going to happen. So what it means is that the role for the integrator actually goes up. And our function, our focus is essentially working as a software integrator and a software developer. So we are actually seeing business coming from both the segments. We are seeing business coming from semicon companies. We are seeing business coming from auto companies. And they both need partners who will talk the language of the other field. And we are well positioned to do that.
Fair call.
Very interesting time, very exciting time.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can understand that. I was just wondering if indeed, some of the other tech giants getting into this kind of this stuff that or no, but I think time will tell.
The tech giants are, they are tech giants, okay? They don't understand automotive very well. Automotive has its own specialty, has its own needs.
But is it Tesla, Mr. Pandit, showing the way that a tech company can kind of do stuff in the automotive space, which maybe people didn't think of?
Yeah, but Tesla, no. You see, what you have to remember, that Tesla has been at it for almost like 17 years. Tesla has incurred huge amount of losses so far, which means that they have done huge amount of investments. And how many Teslas can there be? Not many.
Okay, fair call. A couple of KPIT linked questions, or maybe 2 or 3 questions. And then since we have you, I want to talk about a diverse subject as well. But before that, some focus on KPIT, simply because you've had such a rollicking run in 2021. You made some acquisitions, which I dare say aren't exactly routine. Acquisitions stroke collaborations, which aren't exactly routine. Can you talk a bit about this strategy? What is it that you're doing? Because to the average mind, they can't decipher beyond, hypothetically, I can't decipher beyond 1 or 2 quarters about what your strategy might be. You would be in a better place to tell us why are you doing this and what are the implications of some of these tie-ups or acquisitions that you're doing.
So which one in particular you are referring to?
I mean, I heard 3 or 4 announcements in the past 1 year, right? And they came to my mailbox and I was looking at it. I was like, okay, what would this mean? So I'm just trying to understand from you, how are you going about this? What is the strategy?
So the whole focus of our acquisitions has been, we don't do acquisitions to gain skill. We do acquisition to gain either skill or a client connect. So our acquisitions are always niche. So you would see us doing acquisitions, say, for example, in the case of Pathfinders. That is something which gives us a closer insight into the semicons for the automotive world. Okay. Then there would be acquisitions which relate to getting us a better insight into a given large client, so that we can become the partner of choice even more so for a client. So there have been acquisitions of that time. Recently, we made an announcement regarding a collaborative work with ZF. Now, that is in the field of middleware, which is what I talked about a little earlier. How do we ensure that when the companies bring down their investments in computers from, say, maybe 130 to 5, then you are looking at some kind of a middleware which has to be extremely powerful, absolutely robust, and very efficient. And so the work that we are doing with ZF is to create such a platform. We, of course, do the software part of it. And they also look at its realization on the hardware. So everything that we are doing is to get us deeper and at the forefront of this technology.
So even future mobility would be the type of the acquisition, whichever way you term it, or future mobility. I presume I read that announcement as well. Is around deepening your expertise and not necessarily to gain scale.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Fair call. Sir, so therefore, Mr. Pandit, commensurate, or rather a very normal question to ask. I heard some rumors, but I couldn't find an exchange announcement. You don't plan to get into into the EV business yourself, do you?
No, we don't. So we are not manufacturers, and we are a technology company, and we want to continue to be a technology company. So manufacturing of any buses or cars, etc., is not our cup of tea. We would rather partner with the OEMs to do that.
Okay, fair call. No, there were so many rumors that float around on a stock which is doing very well. So I thought I best get it from the horse's mouth, some clarity about it.
No.
Okay.
There is more than enough headroom for growth in top line as well as in profitability in the business that we are doing. So we don't want to divert our attention from it.
Okay. So last two questions around KPIT, and then I would want to take some others as well. One, I kind of asked you in the earlier half, and you kind of answered it just right now, that there is more than enough headroom for growth. Just trying to assess what's an internal IRR that you envisage. When I speak to some companies, they say that, for example, when I ask them that you've done so well in the first 9 months, that even with the current order book, you will do very well. And they say, okay, yes, we could do very well if you just wanted to do moderate growth. But if you have to do industry-leading growth, then we need to do more. I'm just trying to understand, what's the internal IRR that you have in mind? Is there a target of reaching a particular set of revenues up till a particular point of time? Are you setting those targets for yourself? And are there going to be inorganic ways to achieve them? Or as you said, any inorganic move will only be to access capability and not scale?
So, Neeraj, the way we are looking at our business is that we should be thought leaders in our business. We should have good profitability, and we should have an ability to invest in our business so as to make us thought leaders. We should have an ability to become partner to all the leaders in the OEM and Tier 1 arena. So our way of looking at our future is this, and this would certainly translate into some top line and to some bottom line, but that is not the defining criteria. The defining criteria, this is what we want to be. I trust we will have industry-leading growth. I trust we will have margin improvement, as you have seen in the last few quarters. We will continue to do that. But I don't think today we are in a position to say that 3 years down the line we will be X million dollars and Y% EBITDA and stuff like that. That's not what we are looking at. I think that is the result of what one does. That's not the reason of what one does. So.
Okay. And last question, Mr. Pandit, on this at least, is that, do you need to do any kind of tie-ups around resources which might be becoming scarce in order to achieve your end goals with your clients? I mean, semiconductors have been the talk of town of 2021, but maybe there's stuff beyond as well. Do you need to do any such kind of tie-ups, etc., or get into manufacturing of, say, chips or whatever in order to achieve your scale and goals?
No, actually, say, if you were to look at the chip industry, there is a very distinct trend about those who are really chip designers and those who are chip manufacturers. So I don't think not many people are talking about becoming chip manufacturers. We are definitely far away from it. And we don't see a need to be there. But we see a tremendous role for us as an interface between the chip manufacturing companies and the automotive industry as a whole. And that's a very big role. That's a very valuable role. And that's why we are seeing traction, as I said, on both ends.
Fair call. Thanks for that. Those updates, Mr. Pandit, really appreciate. Now, since we have you, can I just take a bit of a detour away from pure play KPIT, though KPIT may at some point of time benefit from this, but I think during the end of the calendar, I got some press releases from your PR team about work that you're doing around, or you might be doing personally, if not KPIT, around newer technology, fuels, clean energy, what have you. Can you talk a bit about what you're doing and which way or direction you would take, and maybe India as a country could take as well? It'd be fascinating to hear about that.
Yeah. So, at KPIT, we are strongly focused at being embedded technology partners for the automotive industry. In technology, in KPIT, we don't do any products per se, much less hardware products. But as a company, we are passionate about clean transportation. And with that in mind, for the last few years, we have been doing some work in the area of development of hydrogen fuel cell, electric vehicle architecture, etc. And so we made an announcement last year about the work that we have done in fuel cell. And we made an announcement late last month about demonstrating a bus which runs on fuel cell, delivered or designed by Sentient Labs, which is a separate company, but it has incubated it has taken over some of the technologies which were initially looked at started working with by KPIT. So we made India's first fuel cell, hydrogen fuel cell. We believe that vehicles which run long range and which are heavy duty, such as trucks and buses, will ultimately move to fuel cells. So we have been working on fuel cells. We have been working with the Government of India CSIR labs, and we made India's first fuel cell. We showed it realized on a bus, and we believe that's a highly efficient design, which can make hydrogen economy possible in India. Apart from the fuel cell itself, we have also been working on technologies for generation of hydrogen. See, because you cannot have a fuel cell bus if there is no hydrogen. You can't have a fuel cell truck if there is no hydrogen. So we have been working on technologies for generation of hydrogen, especially from biomass. And we announced earlier last year a technology developed for generation of hydrogen from biomass by usage of microbes, anaerobic microbial method, which is at least 25% more efficient than all the conventional methods. So these are the areas, again, these are pure technology plays. We don't want to be in the business of making hydrogen, nor do we want to be in the business of making hydrogen fuel cell buses. But we want to perform actually the core technology role. That's what we have been doing.
Got it. This is by we, you mean not KPIT, but
KPIT,
but
the Sentient Labs.
Sentient Labs. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So viewers, please make that distinction and don't get confused between the two. But Mr. Pandit, this is a fascinating subject. Just a couple of minutes, if you have more. I would love to understand which way do you think India as a country is moving, because we hear sporadic announcements from some large conglomerates about they getting into the green hydrogen space. But it's a bit of a black box for most people. Can you talk a bit about, for example, what is it that India Inc. is doing, and you or some of your compatriots or peers, where is it that you fit in, and where would India be 5 years out from where it is right now?
I think maybe 10 years from now or more, we will look back and say, why is it that we ran all our mobility on fossil fuels? Why is it that we spoiled our cities and gave them such a bad air? Why is it that we continue to import so many fuels from outside and made us energy insecure. I believe that we will have to move to a phase where all mobility is clean and all fuel is generated within the country. Now, what it would mean is that within the city transport, we'll go the battery electric way, and between the cities transport, we'll go the hydrogen fuel cell electric way. And these are the technologies which we have to build inside the country. This is something which is now getting a tremendous tailwind by multiple reasons. There are like 78 countries across the world who have developed their own hydrogen missions. Government of India has developed its own hydrogen mission. A large number of automotive OEMs have said that they are launching electric vehicles as well as hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. A lot of funds are keeping aside money for ESG kind of initiative, and the money flowing into clean transportation is trillions of dollars. So if you were to look at it from all these perspectives, the time for change of mobility industry has arrived. And we believe that what makes us sad is that when the internal combustion engine revolution happened 100 years ago, we were not even independent and we were laggards. When the battery electric revolution happened maybe 15 years ago, we were still going a little slow. But we hope that when the hydrogen revolution happens, we should be at the forefront. And I think technology company like ours have a role to play in that. And we very much intend to play that role.
Very interesting. One last question around this, Mr. Pandit. You reckon there is a possibility, because I heard you mention this earlier, that as a nation, India could become largely fuel self-sufficient, in that we don't have to do such large imports of fossil fuels, because clean energy, electricity, etc., will all power the immense amount of mobility that we have and will have around the country?
I'm convinced that that's what we can do. We can do hydrogen from sun, and we have plenty of sun. We can do hydrogen from biomass, and we have plenty of waste biomass. And all these fuels can be affordable in a very short time frame, and it can transform, all our fossil fuel-based transportation. We are very sure it will happen, and it will happen. So, like they say that the objects appear in the rear view mirror are closer than what they seem like. I think the items that appear in the future are also closer than what we sometimes think.
Cross fingers for all of that. Well, Mr. Pandit, this was fascinating in more ways than one. I wanted a business KPIT conversation. We got a lot more than that. But all the best. I want to ask you numbers, Mr. Pandit, because the results will be due in the next 1 month. So let's not get into numbers. We'll probably talk about that after that. But wishing you and team a fabulous 2022 and all the best with all the work you do.
Thank you very much, Neeraj, and wishing you the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And viewers, thanks for tuning in.